Hey everybody, my name is Vincent Ackard, the host of the Motorsports Outlaws of the West podcast, and we're already here, episode 13. It's been a wild ride to get to this point, and we're going to keep pumping out episodes for you guys. And episode 13, very special episode for you guys tonight as we're bringing on Steve Quercio. Definitely going to be an interesting episode as he has many stories to share with you guys, but we're going to bring on my co-host, Phil Vicinanza with Philosophy. Play. Here it is. Go. Okay.
So nice. We played my intro video twice.
Well, I didn't see it play. I don't know what happened. That was funky. Well, Phil, how are you doing today?
I'm here. I'm alive. I got a haircut, and I'm ready for another podcast.
I might need one of those coming up soon, but, let's talk about our guest, and I'll let you introduce him.
Well, you already said who our guest is. You kind of already introduced him, but it's episode number 13. 13 might be a lucky or unlucky number. That's why we're rolling dice with somebody who has lived and done almost everything known to man in the entertainment business. It is longtime promoter Steve Quercio.
From the promoter that discovered a local Hollywood band, Motley Crue, and produced their first major concert. And who was instrumental in the marketing and promotion that helped turn drag racing funny car legend John Force into a professional. Over 30 years of promoting events. Currently promoting over 45 motorsport events a year. Owner of Racetrack Promotion, a full production and consulting company that produces the Monster Truck Night of Fire and Thrills Spectacular. Steve Quercio.
Steve, how are you doing tonight? Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, great to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. We're gonna rock and roll.
That's what we do. So let's get rocking and rolling right away. So, you've done a ton of stuff in the, promoting industry, just in motorsports industry in general. Let's start from the beginning. Where did it all start?
Where did it all start, huh? Man, you want to go back in time, don't you? My God. So here's my roots. My roots was drag racing. I was a kid at about 13 years old, and there was a drag strip, San Fernando drag strip. That's where I was brought up. So I'd ride my bike up there, and man, the first time that I was at the digs and I smelt the nitromethane, the burning rubber, the people in the stands, that's it, man. It was all over for me. So I started in drag racing, and every Sunday, no matter what, I would go to the drag races. And then I started thinking, man, I love this. How can I really get into this? So then I started selling magazines, and then I started going to other racetracks selling magazines, and I met people, drag news, and I met people, and I met people. And before you know it, man, there I was, just moving up, learning, and I learned from some pretty impressive people. So drag racing was the roots for me in motorsports, and man, I love it today. Nitromethane and rubber, it's awesome.
Yeah, so drag racing was definitely, your bread and butter, where you kind of got your feet wet. What made you want to get into promoting the events, and who were some of the big names that were there when you first started promoting those events?
Well, you know what, man, we're going back in time. But okay, so when I started going to the drags, the big names back then was the Snake. He was just a kid. Don Perdome, Tommy Kewen, Warren Coburn and Miller. This is even before there were funny cars. It was still Top Fuel. And those were the guys. But in the industry, my mentor that really kind of took me under his wing as a kid, he was the director of sales at Drag News. And I went up to him at one of the races and I said, how can I sell these magazines? And the guy just said, blew me off and said, get away, kid. You're 13 years old. I got somebody doing it. I said, look, how much does that guy do right now? He said, well, he sells 200 magazines a show. And I said, how much you pay him? He says, I pay him a quarter a magazine. I said, well, I'm going to tell you something. If I can't sell over 200, you don't pay me a dime. He said, all right, you're on. I went out there and I just blew him away, man, just selling magazines through the stands, loving the drag racing. And Jack Williams, he was a world champion, started the Smokers Bakersfield championships, took me under his wing, met some, McEwen was his best friend, his best man, Tom McEwen. So that's kind of like got me going. And before I knew it, I mean, I was promoting drag races and I loved it, loved every minute of it.
So as you move kind of towards into the 70s, what were some of the different things that you did to kind of stand out from maybe what somebody else may have been trying to do during that time?
So in the 70s, I was touring with the Coca-Cola funny car circuit. And I was still fairly young, but I was selling programs and magazines at drag races across the United States. And then it got to be into the late 70s that I started, after I met my wife, and I got to tell you, without my wife and without my brother, honest to God, never would have made this journey. They've been with me from the very beginning. We've been married 46 years. My brother is just, for those that know Rick, they know Rick. I mean, he's unbelievable. But in the 70s there, I was still selling. Then I hooked up with my wife right out of high school. Now today, the way things are in this day and age, they would have called it stalking, okay? They would have called it stalking. I wanted her. So anyhow, we married and then started figuring out as a young couple, man, what are we going to do? So, I mean, I was kind of in an era of, what do I really want to do? I want to be a promoter, but we got to live. So I sold insurance. I had to go drive a truck for a while. Then I got the opportunity with Jack again. Jack said, come on up to Fremont. We're going to run Fremont Raceway. And from there, I got enough confidence and learned the ropes. See, there's two ways of doing a show. You can promote a show or you can buy a show, okay? Anybody could buy a show. Jack taught me how you promote a show. So then I got enough confidence up from Jack. And I said, you know, Jack, I'd really like to try to do this myself. He said, go for it. He said, do it. So I rented Carlsbad Raceway. I brought in Shirley Muldowney. I brought in McEwen. And believe it or not, I made money. I mean, I pulled it off, you know, just a fat kid from San Fernando out doing shows. And it worked out pretty good. And then that kind of kicked me off. And I was off and running from there in the promotion world. And that was about in the late 70s.
A lot of fan questions in the comments right now.
Oh, man.
And, a lot of your peers in the chat as well. We got Rick in the comments. He says, you bet I'm here. Then we have, who else we have? We have a question from Steven Anderson. He says, do you think large-scale events, as we once knew well, are done as we remember I can't read that. I'm just going to let you read that. Can you see that on the screen?
No, I really can't.
Okay, it says, do you think large-scale events, as we once knew, are done as we remember them for years?
No, I really don't. I sat in on a Ticketmaster seminar last week. Now, Ticketmaster, they got their act together. They got all the analytics. Live Nation. These are the big dogs. What I think is this: Outdoors, my thumbnail, which is secondary market, smaller shows, we're okay. And I proved it last week. I was real leery. We've been doing shows now for about 6 weeks. I work really closely with Danny Torgeson and Monster X and those guys. And we tried it, okay? So we went out there and we were playing it very, very safe. And they were working, but not at the level that we really want to be at right now. But last weekend, I had a show up in Mandam, and I kind of went for the jugular, and it was great. It was packed, sold out, 2 nights. So Outdoors, we're okay right now. First quarter, really, it's going to depend on the vaccine, what the venues tell us we got to do for social distancing. There's going to be a lot of elements that we got to look at, but it's going to come back. I mean, my personal feeling is, yeah, this thing is bad, okay? There's no doubt about it. But I'm in California. We're in hell, okay? I mean, my hair is a mess. We're locked down. I think that once the election is over and they get a vaccine, it will gradually start to come back. Everything will start to come back. I just saw where there was a big major concert in Europe, and they're starting to open up in Europe. They're doing social distancing, and it's going to be weird. You're going to go online to buy a ticket from Ticketmaster or wherever, and they're going to put you in certain spots automatically. So there's going to be changes. There's no doubt about it, but it's not dead. I don't think it's dead, and I'm all in. I'm still all in.
And you've been all in for over 35 years. You've seen the business change in so many ways, including when you went into the 1980s, you're still working with the drag racing scene, and you stumble upon a young hotshot racer by the name of John Force. What was your relationship with John Force, and what stories do you have?
John, what you see on TV is what you get, okay? John is John. He has earned everything he has achieved. He's just the most hardworking, fun. Man, I used to put together his sponsors, and I used to do all his marketing in the very beginning when he was a leaker. I mean, believe me, for a long time, John couldn't even get down the racetrack. So in the very, very beginning with John, it was quite a deal. But I'd run him at my races. I would book him in, and we became really, really good friends. Now, this is way before Austin Coyle, okay? Now, when Austin came on board, Austin got John dialed in. But this was years before John had ever won a race. And we became good friends. I did all of his marketing and promotion. I used to stand on corners with him with that Wendy's funny car. We would be so broke that we'd run out of gas. I mean, the stories I could tell you in the beginning of what we had to do to go to the races, it would blow your mind. I mean, I remember one year at the SEMA show, we go up to the SEMA show, and, John is not, nobody knows who John is. Nobody knows who I am. I mean, John says, give me some dates. And so we go to the SEMA show. We got 6 guys, okay? 6 guys in one room because we couldn't afford nothing else. 6 guys. So I got John a date up in Seattle for Jim Rockstead. And I remember we got back, we were at John's house. We're in the living room. And I tell John, I said, look, I got us a date. It's going to pay $1,500 up in Seattle for Rockstead. And he goes, Quercio. He goes, I can't run for $1,500. And I go, John, you can't even get down the damn racetrack, man. You should take the money and be thrilled. Anyhow, long story short, me and him go through a screen door. We're wrestling around. He goes, "Thanks for not slugging me." And I go, "Yeah, well, thanks for not slugging me either." And anyhow, he went up to Seattle, and he's just a great guy, man. He is a racer. He is really the epitome of a racer.
And racer at heart, just as your promoter at heart. Continue with the drag racing, you kind of mixed it up a bit, and you started pairing drag racing events with rock concerts. What gave you that idea, and what are some of the successes you had doing concerts?
You know, that's kind of a funny deal. My sister, you know, first off, I'm stupid, okay? I'm not that bright. I'm not the sharpest tool in the tool shed. So I thought, hell, I can go do anything. So I told my wife, who just, you know, thinks, you know, she just backs me at whatever I do. I told her, I said, "Honey, let's do rock concerts." She goes, What are you nuts? What do you know about rock concerts?" And I go, "Well, what did I know about putting on races? Nothing." So anyhow, my sister, rest her soul, she first off, I call ICM, the agency, okay? And I tell them, "Hey, listen, I want to do a rock concert, and I need to get a price for Jefferson Airplane." And the guy on the other end of the phone goes, "Who are you?" And I go, "Well, my name's Steve, and I want to do a concert, and yeah, I'd like to start with them." The guy says, What are you, freaking nuts, dude? You don't just call up a major agency and say you want to do a concert with Jefferson Starship." And I go, "Well, how does it work?" He says, "Man, you gotta pay your dues. You know, you've got to work your way up." See, everybody thinks the music industry is huge. It's not, man. It's that big. It's controlled by very, very few people. So after this guy shot me down, my sister, rest her soul, she goes, you said you wanted to do concerts." And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "There's this really crazy band that I seen in Hollywood." And she goes, "Man, they're freaky." Now, this is the 80s. This is the early 80s. And she goes, "You need to go see them and check them out." So me and Jill went down there, you know, and we watched the concert, and I looked at her and she looked at me, and I go, "Shit, I've never seen anything like this." Screaming and hair up 3 feet in the air and the hairspray. And I said, "You want to give it a shot, Jill?" And she goes, "Yeah, if you want to." So I got to go backstage with them, and they were good. Don't get me wrong. They were good. They were rockers, and they sold out the Roxy. I think it was at the Whiskey. We were at the Whiskey. So I went backstage and I said to them, I said, "How would you guys like to go to the next level?" And they said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you're playing clubs and you're really good and you're selling out clubs. What if we take you to a bigger venue?" And they go, "Wow, you can do that?" And I said, "Well, I think I can." So they were all pumped. They were jazzed. And they said, "Yeah, you know what? Let's give it a shot." So I rented the Santa Monica Civic, okay? Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. Now, this band was a joke. They were a joke in Hollywood. Nobody took them serious. And I had put together a sponsorship deal for Force, okay? So I went to KROQ Radio, the big rocker here in LA. And I told them, John complained about the money all the time. He said, "Raymond Beadle gets this, and Perdome gets this, and I get this." So I went to KROQ and I said, "How would you like to have your name on a funny car?" And they said, "Wow, that'd be cool." And I said, "It's not going to cost you a dime." And they go, "Wow, that's bitchin'." So I put together a sponsorship deal. We put KROQ on John's funny car. I traded them for $25,000 in radio time. No money, just radio time. So I went back to Force and I said, I cut a deal with the radio station. He says, "Well, how much money we getting?" I said, "Force, you ain't getting no money, okay? You haven't done anything to earn any money." So anyhow, what we were able to do with that radio time is we would go to Charlie Allen at Orange County Raceway, and where Beetle and Snake and McEwen, they were all getting 35, Force was only getting about 1,500. But I got 25 grand in radio time, okay? So we go to Charlie Allen, who ran the racetrack, and we said to Charlie, so look, if you'll raise John's money up to 3 grand, we'll give you additional advertising to promote the event. And Charlie goes, oh shit, that's bitching. So really, I'm getting more advertising for my shows, and John's getting more money. It's a win-win. So then I said, how can I make this work in another way? And that's when I went back to the band, okay? So now I got this band on the hook. I got a great relationship with John. I rent the Santa Monica Civic. I beat the heck out of the media in LA, promoting this show with funny cars on stage, with John Force on stage. Elvira was the MC. And I remember the guys would call me at night and they'd say, man, Steve, we're scared. How are we going to do? And I said, I don't know, guys, but we're going to find out, man. So anyhow, long story short, John's cars are there. I beat the hell out of it with radio advertising. We sell the place out, sell it out. Huge. First time this band has ever sold out a major venue. They come up to me afterwards and they say, man, that was awesome. We want you to manage us. We were at Ben Frank's and I said to them, because I'm just smart, right? I'm just brilliant. I said to them, oh man, I don't want to manage a rock band. I want to be a promoter. And they said, okay, well, but we'd love to have you be our manager. I said, no, I just want to promote and be a promoter. So the band was a little tiny band called Motley Crue. To this day, whenever that name comes up, my wife puts me in a headlock and says, stupid, if you would have just said yes, we would not be living in no pandemic. We'd be on an island somewhere. So long story short, we used K-Rock, John Force, Motley Crue. Everybody was happy. You think they'd give me another show down the road? Just one more. Give me one more show. That's all I'm asking. But rock and roll was crazy. It was a crazy business. And that's the story behind Motley Crue. But man, it was like yesterday, but it wasn't. But it was like yesterday, and I remember it so clear, and it was so much fun, man. It was just, but there was so much drugs in rock and roll that it wasn't for me. I'm really a family. I'm really pretty a straight shooter, pretty much a family guy. But then I did other concerts. I did Missing Persons, Quiet Riot. The list goes on and on. That's the first time I ever met Woodcock was up in Bakersfield. I was doing a concert with Quiet Riot up there, and Woodcock was a security guy before he was ever a racer. So we did concerts for a long time. Then I stuck with my drag racing. Believe it or not, they don't let you make any money in the rock world. They don't. There's so many agents and this and this and this and this. The promoter, if he can walk out with 10% after it's all said and done, they're really lucky. So I stuck with motorsports.
So going off of that, how did that lead to you promoting monster truck events?
Well, there was no monster trucks. Monster trucks evolved. It kind of evolved. I started doing truck and tractor pulls, and then there with Dave Matthews. Dave Matthews had Zizek Motorsports years and years ago, and NHRA was getting really. They were trying to drum out the small tracks, and they were making it very hard for insurance. So I needed to go in a different direction. So I started doing these truck and tractor pulls because you could do them in an arena. And they seemed simple enough, and they worked, and it was fun. And then the monster trucks. Brian Cardiff, that was the first one I ever had at an event. Then Matthews hooked up with Bigfoot. Then we started bringing Gravedigger out here to the West Coast. So that was kind of like really the very beginning. It wasn't really monster trucks per se. It was truck tractor pulls with a few monster trucks. And then, I mean, look at it now. It's blown off the charts now. So that's where it kind of started for me with monster trucks.
We have another question from Jason Rivas. He says, who are the monster truck guys you gave a start to?
That I gave what to?
A start to.
Oh, shit. Oh, man. I don't, well, there wasn't any monster trucks. So anybody that came along, I would book him into a show. Gary Schatz was, I put him into his first show. Terry was just starting. Creighton wanted to come out to the West Coast. I brought him out here. Welch. Welch was just a kid. I remember calling him up one time and putting him into a show. Let's see. Swanson, the first time he ever ran an event was with a dually and an open trailer. And Rivas was awesome. Rivas was there in the very beginning because he was there in the Mudbog days. His family, his mom is awesome. I knew his dad. They would come run at all my events. Now, this is before monster trucks. And so Jason is a historian in the monster truck world, and he really does. He knows he knows everybody. Let's see, Martial Law, Paul. I would, honest to God, I would really have to sit down and make a list because I don't even remember, man. Oh, Sammy's another one. Sammy was a mudbogger, Sturgis, and he was running tanks. Then he got the monster truck. Bill Oliver, Crazy Charlie. Let's see. I brought out a few of the Midwest guys. I started Red Bluff. Originally Red Bluff was started by me years and years ago. So there was really quite a few, and I'm really happy to say that. I love these guys, and I'm still really good friends with them. Gary Schatz is awesome. Woodcock is awesome. Sammy's awesome. Welch is Welch, and I love him. I'm a little mad at him this week, but I'll get over it. But I love Welch, and we've got kind of like a little group here. They're all good guys, man. They're just all good guys.
So I've been seeing this comment circle around in the comments for a while, and people want to know, what has been your favorite venue to promote at?
My favorite venue to promote at, it's the one that makes me the most money. Now that one I haven't found yet. No, my favorite venue. Let's see. Well, it's got to have a casino close by. That's number one. It's got to be within driving distance because I really don't like going out on the road. I lived that life for way too long. I got so many of them. It's hard to say. Harrisburg is really a good show. I love doing that. Jeff Bursey does a great job for me back there. I'm able to run with the East Coast guys, Paul Baird, Larry Quick, a lot of those guys. But to narrow one venue, it's kind of hard. Quite honestly, Red Bluff was great. We created a monster up there, that thing is still going. You're welcome, Froome. Yeah, you bet. But there's a lot of them.
and a lot of venues you performed in. I was talking to my buddy Brian Anger earlier, and we definitely know that you promote or have a hand in a lot of monster truck events. So what's kind of the process of finding a venue to host an event? What goes through your mind trying to find the next place where you're bringing monster trucks to?
All right. So 20 years ago, me and Sammy are on the road. I got my jet, okay? My jet fire truck, and I did it. I did it myself. Me and my wife, we had an American Eagle, beautiful motorhome, had Sammy. We traveled. We'd sit in the fairground parking lot at a show, and I'd pull out the fair book and a dart, and I'd say to Sammy, come on in here, let's have some coffee. So I'd say to Sam, where are we going? He says, get the book out. And I'd get the book out, and we'd go down the book, throw a dart, and we'd end up going there. That was like 20-something years ago. But to do it right, okay, there's a lot involved. I see guys out there that, are giving it a shot, and some are successful. It ain't rocket science, okay? I mean, if you really want to achieve something, you can do it, but it starts out, it's a puzzle, okay? I'm a numbers guy, and every monster truck guy will tell you, oh man, that cheap SOB, blah, blah, blah. But I've been able to stick around 35 years, and there's a reason. It's about the numbers. You got to budget the rent, you got to budget the media, the cost of the show. You got to take everything into consideration. Then you got to look at the media. Then you got to look at the market and say, what do we think this will draw? And when you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, it works. But man, some of these prices these guys are throwing out now. See, with my roots of drag racing, you don't get paid unless you run, unless you qualify, unless you go rounds. And then all of a sudden, these monster truck guys, they're throwing out prices. I'm going, dude, you haven't even gotten off the trailer yet. And they're saying, well, I want $1,500. This was way back then. I want $1,500. And I said, man, this is unbelievable. But now some of the prices, Feld just blew this thing completely off the charts. I mean, I asked a couple guys, what does Feld pay you? And they'll tell me, and I'll say, well, you need to keep running for them, man. I can't do that. But see, my shows, I have my niche. I don't need to be the superstar. I'm over the ego trip of it. I don't need to be number one. I just want to live a good life, have fun, support my family, and survive. So my niche is secondary markets, really small markets, where I don't got to go in with $100,000 show, and I can pull out and make a decent profit, have a good show, have everybody enjoy it, and we move on to the next one. I do budgets, right? I mean, I did Aloha Stadium last year, and guys, if you saw the budget on that deal there, monster trucks have made it. Believe me when I tell you, because it was serious money. And that was a major accomplishment. For Danny, and I appreciate the opportunity, I was able to sell out 2 shows at Aloha Stadium for him. So it was a win-win. But, there's a lot of work, but there's a lot of work in everything. It's like a mechanic, a good mechanic. He's got to put the right pill in. He's got to do the right tune-up. When he's got everything dialed in, man, that thing hauls ass. So the same thing with a promoter. When a promoter knows what they're doing, they can make it work. So that's kind of like where that's at. Are these answers too long for you?
No.
Do I ramble too much?
Perfect.
Okay.
No. We got another question from Jason Rivas. He says, tell us about how jet cars have been a major part of your history. And
you know what? I'm
Jay
sure
Leno.
in the hell glad we got one viewer. Thank you, Jason. Thank you. Okay, what do you want to know about jet cars?
Go
He
for it.
wants to know, been a major part of your history. How have jet cars been a major part?
Well, that came from drag racing, okay? Because whenever the jets would come to the line at a drag race, everybody flocked to the line, man. The fire, the smoke, the thrill. And you know, a lot of your people, they ain't gonna know who Donor is, but Donor put on Billy the Bomb and jets and funny cars and 64 funny cars, but the jets always fascinated me. And I always, you know, even from being a kid. So in the very early 80s, I've always had jets because, believe it or not, the jets have saved my ass. I mean, so in the very beginning, some of these guys really weren't running up to speed. So, I mean, I had to become pretty good at ducking tomatoes, man. So then I started thinking, I need a hook here. I need something that when they leave, they're going to say, man, I got my money's worth. I'm happy. And the jet does it. I just did it this weekend in Dakota, you know, in Mandam. My poor brother. My brother, man, I could not do this without my brother. He has been there with me from the very beginning. He has operated all of my jets. And, you know, Rick never, ever got the credit he deserves. He was driving monster trucks in the early 80s and running a jet car across the country all by himself. And, you know, it kind of breaks my heart. He's done so much. Good guy.
Well,
But other than that, the jets are pretty cool.
and you're always finding a way to evolve and to keep the money flowing. And one of those big things you did was a major sponsorship with the Jet and Monster Truck team towards the end of the 80s and early 90s. What was that sponsorship, and how did that all come about?
That was from Republic Tobacco, and how I got that, you know, and it's funny because it's one of the early sponsorships. There wasn't sponsorships around. I mean, Bigfoot was Bigfoot, so Bigfoot had theirs. But actually, I had put that deal together when I was with Force, and when I went off into the monster truck world, they liked what I had done for them with Force, and they said, "Hey, we believe in you." So we had a monster truck and a jet car fully sponsored, which was unheard of in the 80s. I mean, that was really, really unheard of in the 80s. So when was it? 80s, 90s? Yeah, in the very early days. And so that was a pretty good, you know, I mean, it was rolling papers and tobacco, but, you know, it paid the bills and it kept us on the road for a while.
Well, we got Mike Minter in the comments, and he has his favorite question. How about those mini monster trucks? What do you think about those?
The minis are cool, man. They're great. I love them, you know. See, the problem is with my budgets, and, you know, if you're going to do 5,000 people, you can bring in everybody. You know, you got the budget to do it. You can bring them all in. You can run the mini monsters. You can do this. My budgets are so damn tight that for not that much more, I can bring in another truck. You know, I could bring in another truck. But they're really bitching. They're really cool. When I can run them, I try to run them. But Borba runs them all the time, and they're great. Borba does the big fair shows, does a great job. The minis always do a good job. I've run some of the minis before. I believe I've run them before, Warlord and a couple of the others, and they do an awesome job. And I wish I could run them all the time, but it's all about the dollars and all about the budget, you know? Oh, I'll tell you another quick story about the jet. I got off in a tangent there. only because I know what my brother just went through this last week, and he's a trooper. But on the Jets, we did a thing with Jay Leno that was so cool on the Tonight Show. So we did a stunt deal to where the gag was Jay's parking spot. And you know how Jay Leno's got all these trucks and, you know, cars and customs, and he's just a car guy. He's a bitchin' guy, really neat guy. So what the deal was is he was going to pull up and park his custom jet truck. Now, this was a street legal 57 Chevy jet truck that I ran. Me and my wife ran this. And the gag was he was going to pull up, but somebody had parked in his parking spot. It said Jay Leno with a big star. So Jay gets pissed, backs the truck up, backs up to the car, and then I got in there and lit it and melted the car to the ground. And then they cut back to Jay getting out of the car, and the guy, a stunt guy, running out of the car on fire and burning, and it was really cool. It was really a cool stunt. I love the Jets. I just love the Jets. I love the smell of them. Do you guys do you like the Jets? Do you like them at a show?
Yeah, jet cars are always exciting. It's always something different. It brings a loud noise and crowd excitement wherever you're at. Yeah,
no, they're cool. The meltdown, and my brother, funny story, he's running our first 57, God, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago, and he's back in Minnesota somewhere. We got two jets that we're running at the time, and we're at a racetrack back there. So we're living in Simi Valley at that time, about 11 o'clock at night, and I'm always petrified, you know, whenever you got a piece of equipment out there. So I'm sitting and we're watching TV, and I get a phone call, and the guy says, "Hey, are you the guy that owns that 57 Chevy that just burnt to the ground?" I go, "What?" Somebody, my poor brother, fuel line broke to where, and in those days we would chain up to the car so we didn't blow it off. Thank God that I spent the money back then to make sure that Rick had the best safety equipment. Burned my funny car to the ground, just melted it. We've got video of Rick sitting in the car, burning fire around him for 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Burn time on that fire suit was about a minute. About maybe a minute 45. One of these other guys would know better. But let me tell you, he was very close to the point of him melting himself to the ground. He burned his hands real bad. He was in a burn center in Minnesota for a good 6 weeks. I'm telling you, man, he's paid the price. He's really paid the price. But you know, that's all part of being in motorsports. That shit happens. It comes down. He's on his way back right now, and he's the only one that can drive. I mean, these guys, I booked Cretin in one time. He drove from Seattle, Washington. He ran in Seattle, Washington on a Friday night, and he was in Reno, Nevada on Saturday for me at one of my shows, which is about 700 miles. He makes it in one night. My brother Rick makes 200 miles in one day, and we celebrate. So this is Friday. He left Mandam, Bismarck on Tuesday. So obviously my brother does not have a career in trucking, okay? I can tell you that right now. I told him, just take your time, get home. When it gets back, I'm going to freshen it up, new paint job, new lettering. But I love my Jets. I've always loved my Jets.
We know how much you like.
Am I putting you guys to sleep here?
Absolutely not. I love
learning
stories.
All right.
I love it. And that's why I got your brother Rick here in the comments. Appreciates the shout out. But you forgot to mention Nash Bridges and how you made $10,000. he only got $300 and he ran over Jill.
Well, that's because that's all he was worth. Okay, that's why he only got $300. So we go up to shoot Nash Bridges. Jason, kind of in a roundabout way, was involved because we had done a show in Bakersfield, and the production company called me and said, "Hey, look, we'd like to get a couple monster trucks to go do a shoot." And I said, "Hey, man, we're open. I mean, we'll be glad to do it." So the guy tells me what the money deal is, and we got to go up to Alcatraz, the Bay Area, and they shot Nash Bridges in the Bay Area up there. So the gag was, and it was really pretty cool. Rick had to come out of a kind of like a huge building and try to get Nash Bridges, try to crush Nash Bridges. One take, okay? He's got one take. We wide loaded 2 trucks up there from Simi Valley because I don't even think we had jacks to jack the trucks, load them and offload them and tire them up. So we get up there and we find out what the stunt is. And this Don Johnson guy, he had a limo drive him 100 feet, okay? 100 feet from his trailer to where the scene was going to be shot. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell did I do wrong? This guy's got a car driving him to get into another car. So the stunt was Rick is going to drive through this huge building, through the door, crush Nash Bridges. I look at the door and I look at Rick and I go, man, Rick, this door is not that wide. I mean, most monster trucks are, 11, 6, 12 in that area there. They're when you got the big tires on it, some buildings are really hard to get in and out of. So we're in there and he's inside the building, driving it around a little bit, trying to get psyched up, and he's going to hit a jump through the door and come out on the other side. And the camera's going to be on the other side, taking him as he comes through the door. And I look at the one side and I look at the other side and I look at my brother and I go, dude, are you going to make this? And he looks at me and he says, I hope so. So anyhow, I go back out there. Man, he nailed it right through the door. Perfect, one take. And he's chasing Nash Bridges around and loving it. And it was bitching. So it was just a great shoot. Woodcock knows all about these shoots. He's a king at it. But this was great for us. So then the next day we had to do some little filler shots, and it was pouring ass rain. And my wife, we're in the rent-a-car in the parking lot, and Rick's out there because now he's got a big head. He's a big star. He's SAG. He's a stunt driver. He makes these things in one shot. So he's out there whipping around in the rain and pulls up, hauling ass to the back of the rent-a-car, and the brakes go out. The brakes went out on the monster truck. That's because we got top-of-the-line equipment, okay? So the brakes go out, run right into the back of the rent-a-car. My poor wife is sitting there with whiplash, almost going through the window. I go, Rick, look what you just did. I go, my God, thank God that it only crushed in the back part of the windshield. And I went over to my wife and I said, are you okay? And she's a little dingy going, man, what happened? So, I mean, the brakes went out. So, yeah, to answer your question, he only deserved $300 after that, what that deal cost me. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
I love it. I love it. So now it's the time of this show where we ask you to explain this picture. So let's roll it.
So here we go. We're going to pull up a picture onto the screen,
okay,
Steve, and all you got to do is explain that photo.
Oh, well, there you go. That's in the very early years. There's Force's car. We got KROQ. Can you believe they paid 25 grand for that little tiny decal in the front? And that is what got John going, that sponsorship. That is what got Motley Crue rolling. And, that's back in about 81. About 81. John was still, he was a leaker. He was still going by brute force. And that was the Mountain Dew car way before he ever ran a national event. So that's the KROQ car.
Show me my picture.
There's our 57 that Rick, when we promoted the show, we said burn the car to the ground. The promoter didn't understand we meant our car. So that's the one right there. But that picture was taken, I think, somewhere up north. And I think that was a Mike West show, who was great to run for. Mike West was a great guy. And if there's any of the Monster Truck guys are out there or view in later, they'll know Mike was awesome. But he had a tendency of maybe running your money for a week or 10, somewhere around that area, okay? So anyhow, long story short, I call Wes and I told him, I said, Mike, seriously, man, this is kind of getting spendy out there running for you. And we really need to get some money. And he said, well, this one is going to be the one we're going to get all caught up and you'll be fine. And I said, no, man, I can't do it no more. Rick's got to come back and we just got to, call it quits. The next thing I know, Rick's calling me saying, hey, this idiot Wes is in our funny car and he's cutting all the wires. And I'm going, what? Wes was in there and says, well, if I can't run you, nobody's running you. And if anybody's out there that knows Wes, they know that's the God's honest truth. But he's a good guy. Mike West was a good guy. But that's a picture of that. That was the 57 with the sponsorship, and that was a long, long time. I can't even see what truck it is. What truck is that?
That's Jeff Strand's Thunder Beast next to it.
Yeah, okay, yep. And then there was Rocky Mountain Thunder, what we would run, Scott Anderson up in that area. Of course, Boehner was, Boehner's awesome. I mean, there's so many good guys. And the one that you're going to have on, he's new, but he's going to be good. Tucker's a great guy. But that goes way back. That's an old picture. I miss that car. That was a real funny car, man. That thing used to run 200 miles an hour. And, and anyhow, take a good funny car. That's why they tell you, how do I make $1 million in motorsports? Well, you got to start with about 2. So that was the story behind that.
Well, I have another picture. Let's see it.
Well, there we go. You know what? I know I'm going to hell when I die, okay? Because ever since I was a kid, I've loved fire. I just love fire. Now, that was the old Barbarian, okay? And I bought that from Bruce Galt. Bruce was just a great guy. And I wanted to be different because we sure in hell couldn't run with the rest of them, okay? This is way back in the 80s also. So I'm thinking, how can we get a little bit of an edge on some of these other trucks to where we're going to be bookable? So, me and Rick talked it over a little bit. And then I said, what if we call this thing the Fire Monster? And he goes, well, yeah, okay, whatever. That's a good name. But, what are you going to do? I said, we're going to make it to where it shoots fire out of it. And he goes, what are you, nuts? And I said, no, we can do this. I know we can do this. So I got a stunt guy, and I said, how can we rig up a system that'll shoot fire in the air? So the guy rigged it up for me, and only my brother could do this, okay? We're at a show in Florida, and I think it was one of Stanley's shows. I can't remember whose show it was. Rick is out there, goes up over the cars, hits the fire, the propane bottle comes out the back door. And before you know it, the propane bottle's bouncing around the arena floor. The promoter said afterwards, my God, please don't call me for any more dates. Thank God we didn't hurt nobody. But that was the fire monster. And I'll tell you what, Rick did that was a big block Chevy with Predators with 5 tons. And I'm going to tell you, that truck is still out there. That truck, Cretan bought it as a ride truck. And I think it's called the Redneck something. What is it?
Redneck Road Trip.
Yep. That's the truck right there. We turned it into a ride truck. But Rick did some really good shows with that truck. And you know what? It worked. It for having a carbureted motor, it put on a good show. So, you know, we didn't have no problem with it.
Well, we got one more picture for you to explain, and here it is.
Oh, there's my old buddy. Look how young he is, man. I'm not kidding. That was one of the first times that we ever brought Dennis out here to the West Coast. I'm going to tell you something. I told him this. I told Dennis many times. I said, you are John Force of monster trucks. And Dennis goes, what do you mean? I said, you just are. He's such a bitchin' guy. Dennis, even in the early years, he was just a great guy, just a down-home guy. And I remember we brought him out. It was my kid. My kid told me, Dad, I seen a picture of a truck called Gravedigger from back east. And I said, yeah, so what? He goes, well, why don't we get him for a show? And then I started hearing about Gravedigger, you know? So then I called him up and I said, well, you want to come out to California? And I was working with Matthews back then. So we did it as a joint venture and we brought him out. And I'm going to tell you, to this day, and I'm not kidding you guys, to this day, there's only one truck in the world on planet Earth that means anything in a radio ad, and it's Gravedigger. And that's the God's honest truth. I mean, Bigfoot is great, you know, no doubt about it. But I'm going to tell you right now, Steve Evans, old drag racing announcer, used to be the Diamond P sports announcer, okay? None of your people will know who Steve Evans is, an old drag racer we're with. He's the one that originated Sunday, 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 okay? And he was the king of all the drag racing spots. He used to cut my spots. And he would say to me, I would say to him, we're going to be doing a race and we're going to have him, and him. And Evans would say, Quercio, once again, you're trying to turn chicken shit into chicken salad. Now, I'm going to tell you for the last time, unless you got Shirley, Garlitz, Perdome, McEwen, you don't mention the name. You sell the sizzle of the show. And that's always been my motto. The only truck that just will kill anywhere you're running ads is Gravedigger. And Dennis is nuts. He's nuts. He's like Force. We're doing a show in Antelope Valley, okay? Place is sold out. I'm happy. I'm thrilled. We made money. Finally, we can pay the rent, okay? And I think this might have been that show. So I go out there and I tell Dennis, man, please don't kill it. Just we're done. Let's go collect our money and I'll give you a little bonus. Let's just end the show, you know? Oh yeah, as soon as I make this final round, all right, Dennis. He goes out there, balls to the wall, one end to the other. People are screaming, they're cheering, they're yelling. What does he do? He ends up running right into the fairground power transformer, kills the lights, sparks flying in the air. Dennis jumps out of the truck, jumps on top of the truck. Fair manager comes over and says, this is going to cost you $5,000. I went up to Dennis. I said, Dennis, My God, man, we had a great payday. Why did you do that? And he just looked at me and said, I had to put on a show. So I end up having, and then afterwards I said, Dennis, you going to help me pay for the transformer? And he goes, are you going to help me pay for my broken parts? I said, no. And he said, no. So good guy, though. I really like Dennis a lot. And Pablo was awesome also. Him and Tina, me and Dennis went round and round many, many times. I remember one time, San Bernardino, Pablo's out there, and Dennis had told Pablo get his money in advance. And why, I don't know. But Pablo says, well, Dennis told me that I got to get my money in advance. And I said, Pablo, come on, man. You know we got to get the money from the box office. He said, I ain't tiring it up till I get my money. I said, Pablo, we got to do this display, please. He says, no, I got to do what Dennis says. And Pablo's great. He's just an awesome guy. So I said, look, I haven't got all the money. Can I give you so much per each tire you tire up? Because we got to go do this display. Pablo says, yeah, I'll do that. So every time he put a tire on, I had to pay him more money. And then by the end, and as it turned out to be a great event. So everything was good. But yeah, those were the days, man. It ain't like that nowadays. It ain't like that. But Pablo and Tina, they're great people. Great people.
Well, you can't beat the classics, and you sure have had your fair share of competitors at your events, and one of them is in one of our comment sections, the old Freak Show with Stephen Smith. And he asked me to ask you about the time Rick hit the electrical panel.
Oh, Antelope Valley. Okay. Oh, man, you guys are going to get me arrested. You know,
Antelope Valley explosions.
Yeah. Well, this one was at the drag strip. Okay.
Gotcha.
Oh, man, I don't even know if I need to go there on this one. This one, yeah, Rick hit a power transformer. Yep, he did. And make a long story short, people wanted their money back. And I'm telling people, because we lost Louis Force was there, John was there, and people wanted to riot. And I'm telling people, don't worry, we're gonna run the event. You just gotta wait until we get the power turned on. So we're telling everybody that, and we called Edison, and Edison is on their way. And I asked Edison, well, how long is it gonna take you? And they said 4 hours. And this is like at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So I'm telling everybody, just hang on. Edison is on the way. We'll get the race in. This was a drag race. So I got some old drunk guy, comes up, walks along the fence. He's drunk, and I'm out there, and he's going, oh, this is messed up. I want my money back. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, he was big, and he was drunk. And I go, well, can you just hang on? And then he got belligerent, started calling me names. And long story short, I just said to him, well, I guess we're just going to fight, aren't we? So we just fought, and Rick hit the power transformer, and just another day in my life. My God. Anyhow, we got the race in. Everybody was happy.
Well, we got another question from Jason Rivas in a previous comment. He wants to know what's your opinion on the International Monster Truck Hall of Fame.
Man, I think it's awesome. Everyone in there, is absolutely accomplished a ton of stuff. I kind of think it's out here on the West Coast, I kind of feel like we're bastard children or something. Because the Midwest and the East Coast, they really do rock and roll. And, I don't know. I think that the Hall of Fame is awesome. I think that everybody that's in it has earned to be in it. And it's quite an honor. And it's a shame they wait till you're dead to honor you. Poor George Carpenter. George Carpenter was a great guy, man. And it would have been awesome, he died a while back, but, like Welch. Welch lives from this Hall of Fame deal. He and he's earned it, okay? But the Hall of Fame has put him over the top. It made him, and I enjoyed. I had him this last weekend announce for me. He's a phenomenal announcer. Welch can do it all. He relates with the kids. He's just very good at everything he does, and he laid him away announcing my show Saturday night, and I just wish he could have drove back, but he was really busy. But the Hall of Fame is a neat deal, and I can't say, if it's cliquish or not. I don't know. I know everybody that's in it has earned it. Woodcock has earned it. Gary Schott should be in there. Sammy Sturgis should be in there. Caberna's earned it. He's earned every bit of it. For God's sakes, Boehner. Boehner has been there from the very beginning. He should be. There's a lot of West Coast guys that, have done quite a bit, to be honest with you. So, but I support him. I support him in any way I can.
Well, speaking of Gary Schott, he's in the comments right now, and he says, how about the wrestling match in Pahrump?
Oh, shit. Oh, these guys are trying to get me arrested. My God. All right. So we're in Pahrump. I got Gary in there. I got Sammy in there. I got my Jed in there. And I'm trying to think exactly. There was going to be the promoter of the track. We had some disagreements, you might say. And how can I put it? He wanted to fight. And I've never, my dad always taught me, you don't run away from a fight. You don't pull guns, but you fight. So I said, I guess we're going to fight. So anyhow, long story short, I let this guy take a swing and I take a dive. Okay. And I'm laying there on the ground and I'm going, oh my God, he's broke my jaw. He broke my jaw. I think he broke my neck too. I need to go to the hospital. And I'm thinking, this promoter's got deep pockets. I'm suing his ass, okay? So then they come over and the paramedics come over. We're out in Pahrump. And the EMTs go, well, we can take you to the hospital if you want. I go, oh, God, yeah, man. I'm hurting bad. And they said, well, we got to fly you out. And I said, well, all right, go ahead, fly me out. And they said, but you got to pay for it. I go, what? And they said, you got to pay for flying you out. And I said, oh, it's starting to feel a little bit better, I think. And so, long story short, we left the track. We left the track, you might say. But thanks, Gary. Thank you. Gary's been there from the very beginning with me. Gary is probably one of the nicest guys. This whole little California group, they're awesome, man. Woodcock is like Napa Auto Parts for monster trucks. He's got everything anybody needs anytime. Sammy and Peggy, I love them. And it broke my heart when we lost Ronnie, because Ronnie was such a good kid. But the kids he's got in there or were in there, and I hope they come back. I hope Jacob and what's the other one that drives?
Oh, it's just mainly Jacob.
What's that?
Mainly just Jacob and Rat Attack.
Yeah, and they're doing a very good job. But what I'm getting at is some of these West Coast guys, they just don't get nowhere near the Rod Wood. Rod Wood's another one. He's great, man. And there's some good newcomers coming up. There's some new people coming up that they're going to be good, but some of the old timers, but Gary, I remember the very first time I ran him down in Indio, and it was still very new in the monster truck world. And he goes out there with his beautiful, beautiful Terminator truck. And he broke the chassis in half, but they're great guys, and they'll do whatever it takes to put on a show, especially Woodcock. I heard the story Woodcock told, and it was the God's honest truth about one of my shows when he had David driving, and Woodcock laid him away. Even Christopher Roy ain't that bad, for God's sakes. He's even a good guy up from the Northwest there, Washington. So all of these guys, they were all really there in the very, very early years, you know? God, I'm old, man. I just can't believe this. Gary, you're old too, okay?
Yeah, a lot of old guys, a lot of young guys. So one of those other young guys is Juan Munoz, who drives for Sam and Unnamed.
That's it. Yeah, Juan. Right. But they were doing a good job. They were really, I mean, they got Sammy's stuff down. Great wheelie trucks.
Well, you've mentioned him a few times, and he's been in the comments. It's good old Terry Woodcock, and I'm sure many of our listeners have seen his episode. He's had a lot of choice comments in the video feed, but I'm going to give you a little bit of redemption. Do you have any interesting Terry Woodcock stories that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I got one.
Oh, boy.
So we're out on the road. Terry, I love Terry. And like I said, Terry came to my rock concerts. He was the security guy at my rock concert. So Terry, when he first started doing, Terry has been around forever and he's awesome. But when he did the WWE, the merchandise was so huge. It was huge. And I remember doing a show up in Oregon when Terry would set up, and I'm really family oriented. I get a lot of guys that get pissed off at me because on the merchandise deal, it's my kids. I gave it to my kid. I don't take a dime off of merchandise. That money is for him to feed his family. And I really wish he would have done something else except stayed in this business. But the merchandise business is his. Terry had the WWE trucks to where the merchandise, you needed 2 tents. I mean, it was huge. I mean, there was displays and shirts and tents. And I told Terry, I said, look, I want to run you, but I can't have you do any merchandise. And he says, well, if I can't do merchandise, I'm not going to come. And I said, well, look, I'll offer you a little bit more money, but I really want to have you come up and do the show. So my kid's up there, and I'm thinking, God, man, Terry's got me by the labels here. I mean, he's got 2 bitchin' trucks, and if he doesn't run, I'm screwed. I won't have a show. So I remember I had to call Christopher Roy, and I said, Christopher, I need you to come up to this show. I don't have enough budget to pay you, but I want you to be there with your trucks. In the event I have a squabble with Terry, I need you to go ahead and run your trucks so I don't get tomatoes thrown at me again. So it was that, I mean, at the time, you know, it was a funny deal, but there's a lot more I could tell you on Terry. Terry's just, he's a great guy, man. He's awesome. He's awesome. I buy my, you know, I'm not a mechanic. You would think, being around this stuff for as long as I have, I toured with Beebe and Mulligan, and I don't even know if you know who Tim Beebe and is, but these guys are brilliant mechanics. And whenever it came time in the pit area to work on the engines, I went out and sold my stuff. I'd rather go make money. So to make a long story short, I've never been a mechanic, and I got to call Terry, I got to call Sammy, I got to call Gary to ask them where the oil plug is. That's pretty much what it amounts to.
Well, we have a comment from Harry Smith, and he says Mike Welch stories. So I'm assuming he wants to hear some Mike Welch stories from you.
Oh,
It should be good.
okay. So, Mike Welch, there's a lot of stories there too. I could tell you a story that just happened this week, but I'm not telling that one. So anyhow, I'm doing stuff for Tony Vaccaro and Bob George, SRO. We're doing the Bay Area. We're doing, I think it was San Jose. It was either San Jose. Anyhow, Welch comes down, and my job was to go do promotions. So I go up to Welch and I tell him, follow me. I'm going to give you a couple $100. Just follow me, and we're going to go put something together. I didn't have anything put together. So we drove down the main boulevard with Welch following me. He's only 18 years old. He's just a kid. He don't even know. And we keep stopping at car dealerships. And Welch says, well, where are we going? I said, just hang on. We'll find a place. Just hang on. I don't know where I'm at exactly. What I was doing is trying to sell a display while Welch is following me in his truck. And finally, I got one. It was a Chevy dealer, or it was a Ford dealer. So then I said, here you go, Mike. Here's where we're supposed to be. Tired up, set it up. He put it on display. He got his $100. I got my 500. And, it was kind of unique, because that's kind of like how we met. His first impression of me was, I ain't following him no more. I ain't doing it. But he's awesome. He's great. He's a great talent. And he's such a good announcer. Have you guys ever heard him announce?
Yes, I have.
He's good, man. He's really good. He does a good job. There's a lot of Mike Welch stories. I mean, there's a ton of them. There's just, my wife told me, she said, you ought to write a book. And I said, no, I really don't think I ought to write a book.
Well, looks like we got a comment from Dave Groves, and he says, remember getting the jet stuck in Cholo, losing your shoes in the mud.
Oh, yeah. Dave is awesome, too. I met Dave probably 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Actually, he was doing some of Beckley's stuff. And I remember I talked to Beckley and I said, I need an event director. And this is before I lived in the high desert. And I remember hooking up with Dave. Dave ran my shows, announced my shows. He's just a great guy. He's a good guy. I'd love to have him come back again and do some of the stuff. But I love Dave to pieces. But we were up in Cholo, and the jet did its thing, and a clay track, if a clay track gets dirt on it or water on it, it's all over, man. I mean, we got a loader, a 5-yard bucket stuck one time down in Ventura. So I'm out there, and Rick did his thing. I think Rick was doing I think I was doing the jet back then. And I remember jumping out after I did the fire show, and there was so much clay, I went to go take a step, and before I knew it, man, both of my feet are in the mud. My shoes literally stayed in the mud, in the clay. So here I am walking around, making sure the afterburner's off and so forth, in my socks in this clay. It was quite a mess. But I could tell you stories about Dave. I mean, we've had some great times. He too is also a great announcer. And I was lucky enough to teach him. Early on, I used to do all the announcing. Man, I used to do it all. I would promote the show. I would announce. Me and my wife, the next day, we'd go out there and pick up the cups. I'm not shitting you. We'd have to do the cleanup. So it wasn't always roses. I mean, we really kind of had to pay our dues, you might say. I'll tell you a quick story. Me and Joel are just married. And I remember we're broke. We're young. We're 21 years old. And we're trying to survive. We're lost. So we have this little house, little 2-bedroom house. And I was behind in my car payment. So the 6 o'clock in the morning, this guy comes up. He's in a suit. He's got white gloves on. And he knocks on the door, and I don't have a shirt on or nothing. I go to the door. He goes, well, I'm from the bank, and we're here to repossess your car. And I go, what? I go, I know I'm behind, but I'm going to catch up. And he goes, sorry, I got to take your car. We got to repossess it. I go, oh man, I need to get a job. Please don't take it. He goes, nope, got to take it. I said, can I at least put a shirt on and get my stuff out of the car, please? And he says, yeah, go ahead. So I get a shirt, we run out there. All of a sudden you hear the car start up, and I put it in reverse and I haul ass backwards, put it in drive, and just drove off. The guy says to my wife, is he coming back? And my wife says, no, I don't think so. Not today. So that was like one of the early years. You know, promoting is one of these businesses that on Thursday night, okay, you could be eating hot dogs and beans and broke. And believe me, many Thursdays we spent that way. And then Saturday night, when you have a good show, man, you know, it's like, wow, this worked. This is great. So it hadn't always been easy. It ain't easy now, for God's sakes.
So Dave also wants to know about the reality TV show. Let's hear about that.
Oh, yeah. We shot, they call it a reel. And like I said, Terry knows all about this stuff. But we shot a deal, and what it was going to be, I wanted to call it The Promoter. You know, I mean, I loved, what was the bike show with the gnarly, the father and the son, American Chopper? Is that what it was?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I envisioned I would love to have a deal like that. So they approached us, and they shot a pilot of the life every day working behind the scenes of putting on a monster truck show, which, believe me, it could get pretty exciting. It would be every bit as exciting as American Chopper. All they're doing is building a damn bike. I'm dealing with monster truck guys trying to kill me, okay? Radio rep saying, send me money, this, that, the other thing. So we shot the pilot, and Dave was a part of the pilot, but man, it was going to be a lot of work. It really was going to be a lot of work. We almost sold it. We almost sold it to Discovery, but the money deal was so weak that we kind of passed on it. And right then is kind of like when reality kind of dropped off a little bit, you know. But it was fun to shoot. Dave was a part of it. It was all about behind the scenes, you might say.
So we've had a few.
Don't you guys think that would be a cool show?
Oh,
don't you think that'd be bitching?
Anytime I could see monster trucks on my TV, I'm always a fan.
Yeah. I mean, you know, people don't see them broke down on the highway. And I mean, Larry Quick this last weekend, up till 3 a.m, him and Shannon try to fix a motor. They don't see all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that, it's really pretty entertaining. Promoters getting chased around grandstands, stuff like that. It's neat.
Yeah, and you're still rocking and rolling out there. Had a few comments on here about maybe some of the more recent projects you've been working on, and that's with the Mega Monster. That's definitely a truck that's been a big part of some of your events recently, and you've got a good amount of attention on it. Where did that truck come from? How did it come about, and what's kind of your thoughts on it?
Well, okay, so here's the deal. You know, I myself, I know that your people that are watching this are probably going to be the younger demo, and maybe not necessarily my thought process, but I'm in a situation where I kind of do what I want to do. All right. I don't really give a shit. I just do what I want to do. So I got this truck because I got my jet, and I wanted to have a 2-team operation, a ride truck, jet, and a monster truck. That works. And I said to my wife, she goes, well, what are you going to call it? And I got to tell you, man, I like Trump. All right. I think he's doing a great job. And he's real, and he tells it how it is. And he don't give a shit either. He don't care, okay? So I told my wife, I said, I'm going to call it the Mega Monster. And she goes, what? I go, make America great again. So I had it lettered and wrapped and mega with Trump on it, the wall on the front. Holy shit, man. When that thing came out, I got race teams telling me, we ain't going to run if that truck's there. And a pretty big race team, too. And I said, why? Why not? And they said, because of we want to gear our show to kids. And I said, well, what's better than, American flag and America and the Pledge of Allegiance? What's wrong with that? Anyhow, long story short, it's controversial. I got it on national news. We did a 5-minute hit on one TV. I wanted to bring it to rallies, and I still might. I still am looking into it. So Mega is ready. It just came back from the Dakotas. The hardest part, guys, is finding the right crew. That's the hardest part. I cannot get the right people that don't want to go out there and just tear the shit up, So if I found the right guy, there's one guy that I would have do it in a heartbeat, and that's Barry up in Canada. But, he's a high dollar guy, and it doesn't fit my thumbnail. So, I want steak on a hamburger budget, and, it is what it is. But if that guy, because Rick is about done. Rick, he's been doing it his whole life. This was probably his last tour. He'll do local stuff with me around here. But so right now I gotta kind of reinvent the program, you might say.
Oh, absolutely. And we had a follow-up comment from David Tucker. Did it kind of blow up on your promotional, or do you even care if there would be any repercussions for the statement that you're making with the truck?
You know what? I've been broke before, and I'm the type of guy, I just kind of tell it how it is, and I didn't really care. I just didn't care. And I kind of thought, I'm going to get some snowflakes that are going to get pissed, and they did. I mean, oh man, we lit the internet up one night. They called me every name in the book, for just honoring the president. What is wrong with that? So I got a lot of feedback. No promoter will book it, maybe because it don't run worth a shit, but no promoter will book it. But that's okay. I'll run it at my shows. I don't care, and I don't care if I get pushback. Because I kind of do what I like to do, so it doesn't really matter to me. But it's still controversial. In the Dakotas, they loved it, okay? In California, I can't make it through an intersection. So it all depends on where you're at.
And that'll always be a raging debate, especially here in the USA. Speaking of different countries, your buddy Barry from up there in Canada.
Barry!
Yep, old Western Renegade. He says, tell Steve if he can convince Rick to stay on board for another year.
Barry.
Border opens up.
Barry, you should have been there last week, man. It was unbelievable. We need you so bad. If I could have flown you in, I would have. Barry is one of the most talented guys I've run across. Monster trucks, knowledge, he really does it all, but he's worth every bit of the money. And I don't have the budget on my type of events to pay him. But bottom line, after going through what I went through this last week, I'd have been better paying him. But see, Barry is a high level quality talent, and you got to have, you got to pay him right. So some of the guys, that I get, you get what you pay for. I'm trying to get Shots to do it too. Every time I call, he blows me off. I asked him, I said, do you want to go run my truck? He goes, man, we're breaking up really bad. I'll call you when I get a chance.
Hey, you just never know. As we start to slowly wind down here, you've accomplished a lot in your long-time career, and I know you're not slowing down. You've promoted so many different scale events, and I want to know, what's the largest event that you've been a part of?
It has to be Aloha Stadium, no doubt. Sold out 2 shows. That absolutely rocked. And the biggest accomplishment, that was last year. And we were on track to do really good this year. You know, Danny does a great job. That whole group over there is pretty awesome. And I really enjoy working with them. But that was a good, where the accomplishment was, believe it or not, it wasn't the show. It's where I came in on my media budget. It's that little stuff that is intricate that says, hey, you did a good job, man. For you to come in at that amount of money, you know what you're doing. That was really, that was pretty thrilling. So that was a big accomplishment. The other big accomplishment is, quite honestly, my wife staying with me all this time. Can you imagine being married to a guy that comes home and says, we're moving? Where are we going? Well, we're going to go run around. And she goes, you know. So my wife is absolutely the best. She's awesome.
So
46 years, man. 46 years. I know I don't look it. Right?
I love it.
Well, we want to know, what do you think?
I lost sound, guys.
Oh, can you hear us?
Let's see. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Well, what happened? I don't know.
I don't know, Steve. We can hear you. We can hear you just loud and clear.
There he goes. Pulled a Dawson on us.
No, he's fine. See if you can get Steve to jump back in here, and we'll ask him his last couple questions here.
What I was trying to ask was to Steve about what he thought about, modern day monster trucks and, what monster trucks are doing today. I saw we had a comment about that. So we're definitely going to try to get that question in and, go from there as we wait for Steve to come back.
Well, we'll see. But, I can definitely say with the way that Steve has promoted over the years, he's another one of those guys. There's a reason why he's been in the business for 35 plus years is that he's been able to adapt with the different changes in the business. It's never fair to stay stuck to one thing, especially if it's not working. It's important to kind of keep moving with the motions. And now I know Steve, hopefully we get his opinion on it. His events, you're not seeing the backflips or maybe some of the more intricate things you see on some of the TV events, some of the bigger events. But I would have to imagine that what those events, what they're doing, it's a kind of a catch-22 because not only does it get exposure for what somebody like Steve is doing and maybe some of the smaller markets where he's able to bring in those TV trucks or some of the big-name trucks like he was mentioning before, but on the flip side, are those fans expecting that kind of competition? Maybe they thought they're getting what they do see on TV or on YouTube or whatever, but they're actually getting a different approach, which is what Steve promotes at the smaller tracks.
Yeah, you talk about him adapting to, promoting. We saw earlier in the episode, if you want to watch back, we talked about the Fire Monster and how, we saw that truck compete, shooting fire, and then we saw him bring the rock shows and drag racing together. I mean, he's done a lot. But yeah, if you want to watch back, Steve talks all about it.
Yeah, he talks about a lot here. Just, it's kind of one of the longer ones too, and he's had a lot of great stories. I even see in the comments, fellow historian Jason talk about how he was a big help in 2 Extreme getting the Checker Shucks Cragen sponsorship. I had no idea about that. I look up to a guy a lot like Jason who's been in the business for a while, and he kind of writes down all the little nerd stuff that I kind of keep track of today. So that was a big partnership for the Cretan team, and that really put Bounty Hunter and Scarlet Bandit on the map, and you still see Jimmy Cretan taking names. He's the reigning world racing champion for another year, and little things like that. I had no idea that Steve was a part of it there. Yeah, I know Steve. He still has a fax machine. It's funny. My mom's in the other room, and she always points out that we got rid of our fax machine. So I appreciate Steve keeping his, and hopefully we can get him back here on the line. I know when we were doing the test stream with Steve, we were showing him how to get this running on the phone.
The man of the hour is back.
There he is.
Hey.
Hi, Steve.
Oh, I'm back.
You're
I
back.
don't know I have no idea what happened, man.
Back in the saddle again.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm sorry. Modern technology, you know what it is.
Hey, no, that's why we rolled the punches, and luckily we've said nothing but great things about you in the few minutes that you were.
You haven't had enough of this yet?
No,
Are you kidding me?
We're getting close, but not quite.
All right.
But hey, one of the questions Vinny was going to ask was talking about kind of the current state of monster trucks, where the obstacles are getting bigger and the tricks such as backflips and two-wheel skills are really becoming more of a forefront at these events. Do you see that being more of a challenge for you to promote your events? Like, do you see maybe some of the fans that come to your events are expecting that kind of content?
Yeah, they are. You have to evolve with what is working, okay? I mean, when they started to do the backflips, yep, I had to do backflips. I had Cretin do them. I've had Larry do them. You have to do them. Now they're doing the wheelie walk deal, So you gotta evolve as long as you're delivering the entertainment to the people. You gotta kind of do what it takes. Now, when you have a smaller show of 4 or 5 trucks, 4 trucks, it's hard. Feld, when you got 10, 12 trucks, man, you can do anything. But if one of my trucks goes down, then, show's over. So, but no, it's constantly evolving, and it is going to come back.
We actually have another picture for you to explain. This was sent in by Juan Munoz, who drives for Sturgis, and Bill Payne, and he has a picture. Explain this picture. He wants you to explain this one. It's kind of hard to see, a little blurry.
That is blurry. Let's see. I can't even see, and I don't want to touch the phone.
He said Bakersfield.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nope. But I can't tell what year it is. But it looks like it's older trucks.
Looks like the Reptoid and the Fire Monster in the picture.
Okay.
Early 90s.
Early 90s. Okay, that would be with I brought Jimmy Jack out here with Reptoid. Yep.
From Florida.
Yeah. Well, he was from California. Then he moved back there. Then he came back out. There's so many good guys in this industry. They're all really, really good. And there's so many really good up-and-coming guys. Paul Jensen, I don't think he's been in the business a long, long time, but really does a great job, good equipment. Christensen, Brian. There's a driver that nobody ever really gave credit to, and you may not even know, but he used to drive for Cretin, and he would drive the Monster Patrol truck. He's up my way. His name is Gino Canal, okay? Gino, in my opinion, was one of the top drivers that really, he decided to get married. If he didn't get married, he would have been a Feld superstar.
And when you were also away, we had another comment from Jason Rivas. He said you were a big help in 2 Extreme getting the Checkered Chucks Cragen sponsorship.
Well, no. I mean, I helped Jimmy in a way because I brought him into the studio. We cut a marketing video, and Dickinson, I think, probably helped Jimmy more on that deal. But Jimmy's a smart guy, okay? Jimmy is a very smart guy. And, he probably doesn't even need monster trucks. He's an engineer. I mean, he's just very smart. And he pretty well, Dickinson was a promoter. But long story short, I was maybe in the back end, but I really wouldn't take any credit for that one.
All right, Steve, it has come to that point. We've told a lot of stories. You've got a lot of questions answered, but I'll make this our last question.
And I know I hear the police at the door.
Well,
right
I
now.
don't want to slow them down. They do very good work, and might have some questions for you. But I'll make
Sure.
this my last question.
Sure.
You've been in the business for over 35 years, and I know you're definitely not slowing down. Through it all, the ups and downs, when it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be?
He was a cheap son of a bitch, but he paid his bills.
I love it.
No, that doesn't work. That don't work. I am, man. I gotta cut tight budgets, but they all get paid. I don't know. You know what? I'll be gone, so it really wouldn't matter. I could only imagine what some of these guys would say about me. I hear it now. Matter of fact, I hear right now, we wish you were dead. Figure that out. I'm joking. But I don't know what it'd be. I'll tell you what it would be. It was family first, man. One of the reasons I did not run off with Motley Crue is I love my wife and I love my kids, and that lifestyle would have absolutely tore us apart. So, and I'm old school Italian, okay? So it's definitely family first. And you had to know the guy. They talk stuff about me all the time, but they don't even know me, If you knew me, it'd be a different story. So I guess that would pretty much be it. You guys don't know something I don't, do you?
What's that?
Talking about how I want to be left. My God.
Well, you said the police are right outside the door.
I know, right? Right.
All the podcast they listen to.
There you go.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, from one Italian to another, it's been very interesting to hear your career and many different stories. I know we barely scratched the surface with some of them. It's been a great pleasure to hear them and to learn a lot from you. Wouldn't you say so, Vinny?
Yeah, definitely enjoyed hearing your stories, Steve. Learned a lot about you.
Well, you know what? I want to apologize for not letting you guys talk more. It's your show.
You're the guest. That's one thing that podcasts need to learn. We're just the stooges with the questions, and you're the guy while everybody's tuning in.
I saw you sleeping over there for a few minutes. But I want to tell you, you guys do a good job. Keep doing what you're doing. Follow your dream. And you know what? Good things will happen, man. Good things will happen. So just keep doing it.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. Really appreciate that. And it's been a pleasure having you on here on the podcast. And hopefully we'll see you down the road, whether it's at an event or back here on the podcast.
Love to, guys. Have a good one. And look forward to being with y'all again. Take care.
Thank you, Steve. Bye. Well, that was episode number 13. What do you think, Vinny?
Awesome. I mean, we learned a lot about the industry, a lot about Steve, a lot about the early years, and learned a little bit about Motley Crue, his drag racing experiences. Definitely an interesting story behind Steve and everything going on. It was pretty entertaining, if I say so myself. I mean, my favorite part of the episode probably would be hearing about Dennis Anderson and Pablo Huffaker back on the West Coast. So let's take this time. If you're still listening right now, what was your favorite moment on the podcast? I think this is going to be a new thing we're doing at the end of the show. Just leave a comment. Maybe.
But he's only just getting started. And now he's been in it for a long time, but he's got a lot more stories and a lot more memories to make.
We'll talk about the end of the podcast. We like to do something at the end of the podcast as well, which is talk about our next guest. And this guy, his truck, I tell you what, it's a truck like no other, first of its kind. I mean, Phil, what else do you have to say about this guy before we play the video?
Well, he's almost an early innovator. He's already left his mark in the history books for monster trucks, and next week he'll be our podcast guest. So let's roll it. So next week, we're kind of bringing it back a little more modern. We're going to have David Tucker, the owner and driver of the very unique T-Max truck. He also drives Survivor for Tony Canedo. The T-Max truck is one of a kind. You kind of talk about the different stages and evolutions of monster trucks. And we really don't know where David's truck fits into it. He's really almost a next step. And who knows, many years down the line, when maybe monster trucks do and look the same way as T-Max, we'll look back at David as the first. So we're going to talk about how David thought about that truck and maybe some of the other crazy ideas that he had and what got him to the dance here in Monster Trucks.
We'll see you next Friday, 6 o'clock Pacific time. I'm Vince Snackard and Phil Vichinanza. We're going to sign off, and we'll see you next Friday.